But everything came to a head 2020. Just like any other day, I get a phone call with my mom. She's been rushed into hospital and like she's got COVID. But it's like this, and she's in intensive care.
Wow.
And the only thing keeping her alive is a ventilator.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode right here on Entrepreneur Podcast Club. I'm your host, Mr. EPC, and give a big, massive round of applause to my very special guest, Ibrahim. So, welcome to the show first and foremost. Thank you very much for your time. So,
thank you, for my friend. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So, do you just want to tell the viewers a bit about yourself?
Awesome stuff. I mean, yeah, so look, as you mentioned, my name is Ibrahim Braimah. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a property investor. I'm also a podcaster myself as well. Just love people, love having conversations, and love to make money. So that encompasses who I am, really.
Okay, fantastic. So let's just take it all the way back. So just to get to know you a bit more. So do you just want to tell the viewers a bit about where you were born, where your journey all started, etc.?
Brilliant. Yeah, so I'm of Nigerian descent. So I was actually born in Nigeria. I moved to the UK in 2000. It's always very easy for me to know how long I've been here because 2000 round numbers. So 2023, I've been here for 23 years. So I've been blessed with that, easy numbers. But yeah, so I was born in Nigeria, and I grew up in Nigeria. First of all, I grew up in a village in the Benin Empire. So you would have heard about the Great Empire of Benin. So that's where I was born. And then I moved to Lagos at the age of 4, 5. I moved to Lagos, and obviously I spent about 7, 8 years in Lagos before then ultimately moving to the UK.
Okay, fantastic. And you say you have Nigerian descent. So are you Yoruba, Hausa?
So you know a little bit about the Nigerian flavor, yeah?
Yeah.
Come on. I'm actually not. So Edo State, Benin, the Benin Empire is just next to Yoruba land.
Okay.
But we're not actually Yoruba, we're Edo. But it's interesting, there's a little bit of cross culture. So for example, we call our kings Oba, and so do the Yoruba. So it's like the king of Benin is called the Oba of Benin. But Oba is a Yoruba term, right? So there's obviously, because we're just right on the border, there's some cross contamination, but yeah, there's a lot of similarities in that way. But we're not one of the 3 major tribes, which is Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo. We're actually not any of them.
Okay, fantastic. So you said you moved to Lagos for 7, 8 years, and then you come to the UK in 2000. So how old were you when you first came to the UK?
Yeah, so when I came to the UK, I was 14, young teenager. We moved to London. And it's interesting because we actually moved this June 23rd. So we're just, I don't know when this podcast is going to go out, but we're just, today's June the 14th, 13th, I believe. So just, it's going to be 23 years in the next week and a half when I move there. And right now it's hot. I've just got a fan over there just to cool me down. But what was interesting is when I moved to the UK in June, the first stop we had I didn't know what Tesco was at the time, but I remember when I was that we stopped at Tesco because I was just in the car and I'm freezing. That was my first thought, like, oh, that hell, what's going on? And bear in mind now, this is June. I'm sitting here melting. I've got a fan literally blowing right at my face. But 23 years ago, I thought this was cold. I was like, what's going on? So my mom had to stop at Tesco and get me a fleece, like one of those fleece jumpers. So I remember that vividly. Really, really interesting. So that was my first impression. The second impression was, I thought we were rich. Because I've been growing up in Nigeria. I always know my mom's in the UK. So I'm thinking at some point I'm going to move to the UK. This is great. Like, we're rich. England, like, this is the Western dream that they sold to us back in Africa, right? Like, everything is grey and the streets are paved with gold and all this sort of stuff. So I always felt like everything's just going to be better in the UK. But then when I moved here, and bear in mind, my mom was doing all right. She was an entrepreneur. She was running, a multiple 6-figure business. There was a point when she was actually turning over 7 figures. So I don't know at which point this was, but she was successful. And we had a house in Catford. But for me, it's about the idea of what the West was going to be. So we had these terraced houses. So when I come, I thought, hang on, I was poor in Nigeria. And we had our own house with a garden, with fruits and all of that. We're planting fruits and veg and all that. I'm thinking, digitized everything. And we were poor. And I'm coming here. I'm like, why's all these houses next to our house. What's going on? So it was just this, it was very, very weird for him. Those are the two things I remember. The first one was, it's cold. And then the second one was, what's all this house is doing next to ours?
Okay, fantastic. So once you came to the UK, what year did you start high school? Was it year 10, year 9, year 10?
It was actually strange because I'm not sure. Because I know that there's a slight difference in terms of years and ages between Nigeria and but I started in year 9, but I believe I was going into year 10 in Nigeria, but I started in year 9, I think just because of, my date of birth and all this sort of thing, what month I was born. I'm not sure exactly how it was, but it was one of the two. But I think I did an extra year essentially. But yeah, started in year 9. I started straight away. So I came in June, September. Or why I did this. So the all boys schools, they were like if you were poor, you can't go to boarding school. And a lot of these boarding schools were like military all boys. So it was just weird because what you don't have, you want. Right. So when I came to the UK, my mom gave me the option. There was 2 schools. One was a mixed school and one was an all boys school. But because of this nostalgia, I'm like, oh, we have got money now. I can go to an all boys school. This is cool. I chose to go to an all boys school, which is mental. And I was like, bro, what were you thinking? What was good for your head? But that's exactly what I did. So yeah, September, and I had the 2 choices. Chose the all boys school. Went there for a couple of years. St. Joseph's in Blackheath, crazy green blazer, crazy school. One of the worst schools in the country at the time. But my mom didn't really like the pattern of where my life was going. I didn't really think it was that bad, but she's a parent. She hasn't seen it for years. Right now, I'm finally in the UK. She's worked hard, brought me over here, and I'm in the school. I'm in at that time a rough part of now. Like, I don't need to be here. Like, you know what? We're getting out of here. We're going to Cambridge, and that was just mad. So I moved from Southeast London to a village in Cambridge. Like, what is going on? I didn't speak to my mom for 2 weeks solidly. Like 2 weeks we didn't speak because I was fuming. I couldn't believe what was happening, right? Because obviously I've moved, from one environment to a new environment, and now you're starting to build friendships, relationships, all of this, and then boom, we're packed out from where you've got 95% black population in the school to you were the only black person in this village. Well, not quite true. There was me and my sister, and there was another black guy, right? This is it. From Southeast London to that environment and then to a school. Obviously, I hadn't started school yet, but I already had an idea of what school was going to look like, right? Because of the environment I was in. But yeah, so those were the early days. Those were the early days.
Okay, fantastic. So once you finished school, did you go to college, university? Tell the viewers a bit about that.
Yes, I did. So I went to college. I did business because, for some reason, I just always had this idea and this vision of business. It was one thing growing up in Nigeria, just, when you're poor, you want what you don't have. So I wanted wealth. I wanted money. And my vision at the time of money was just a businessman. I didn't know what a businessman was. Obviously, now I know there's so many different businesses. You could be selling fruit, right? Actually, there was a lot of business owners and businesses in Nigeria. We had, the street hawkers, the market women, all of these are businesses. But then my idea of a business was just a man in a suit, briefcase. That was it, right? So, went to college, did business. And I think I did like travel and tourism as well, or whatever it might have been. But yeah, that didn't really work out. That didn't work out because just over a year into college, situation happened in my life. Again, my mom's like, I don't like what's going on. Do you know what? I'm sending you back to Nigeria. And I was like, that ain't happening. I'm not going back to Nigeria. Trust me. I've tasted it over here. It's not going to happen. So that's where I found myself homeless, right? And that went on for a few years, just sofa to sofa. Sometimes actually just been out there in the streets. But that really was a pivotal moment in my life, and it was I've spoken about this on other podcasts, and it was a very, very cold winter around about October, and I'm in a garage at this point, right? I'm in a garage, is typical stuff you see in the garage, right? Everyone's just dumps their bags, boxes, bags, all of that stuff there, and I'm in this garage, and just on the corner I've laid down cardboard boxes on the floor. A duvet that one of my friends has given me. And this was my home. This was my home. And On this particular night, it's raining, it's freezing, it's windy, and there's just a little crack, just a little gap between the door and the bottom of the garage. The wind is blowing the rain in now. And I'm sitting there, I've got this duvet over me. The duvet is getting wet. And I'm freezing out. I just remember just feeling really embarrassed. I'm just embarrassed, like I'm ashamed of myself, because the truth is, I've always known that I've got the ability to do whatever I wanted to. I've always known that I've got intelligence. But the reality is, all the decisions, everything that I had done in my life up until this point had gotten me to where I was. And I'm homeless. And like that night, I just made the decision, like, this ain't gonna be my life. I've been on this path for years now. I've got to make a change. If I want to see a change in my life, I've got to be the one to make that change. So I decided, I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to ask for help for the first time in my life. And I reached out to the one man who, even when I was at school, acting a fool, doing all this sort of madness, he always saw, there's always people in your life who see what you're capable of way before you see it. And he was one of those. And he would always tell me, like, you could do so much more. Like, you need to fix up. So I was hoping he would help me. So I went to him the next day. This was my teacher, actually. So I went to him and he didn't let me down. He supported me, guided me. And just under 2 years from that day, I did go to uni. Back to your question, I made it to university. And, that's really where the next phase of my life started.
Okay. So when you was homeless, you said you was homeless. How old were you when you were homeless?
So this is, because I'm a November baby, so I would have just been turning 17 or I just turned 17. But it was December time, so I just turned 17. I just turned 17.
Okay. And how long did that last, the homelessness?
A good 2-3 years.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So you said you went to uni afterwards. What did you study at uni?
Business.
Okay.
Of course. Of
Okay.
course.
Fantastic. So whilst you was at uni, did you pick up a part-time job?
At uni, to be honest, I had a part-time job, but it wasn't retail. Let's put it that way. Well, it was retail, but not in the shops. Obviously, I spent years in the streets, right? I spent years in the streets. I'd done what I had to do to cope in the streets. So, I had access to people who could provide me with merchandise, should we say, that I could generate an income from.
Okay, fantastic. Say no more. So once you finished uni, what was the first job that you picked up after uni?
The truth is, I didn't finish uni. I didn't finish uni because here's the thing. I went to uni in 2008. There was something that happened in 2008. The global financial crisis. Everything came crashing down. And at this point, I'm going through personal development, right? I'm reading all these books, got me to uni anyway. In my mind, I'm trying to fortify my mind. I'm learning about different things, sales, marketing, all of this sort of stuff. So I'm looking at the landscape of everything, and I'm thinking to myself, especially Think and Grow Rich really helped me. So anyone who hasn't read that book, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, incredible book. It's one that I've probably picked up 5, 6, 7 times over the years, like just read it again. It's that foundational, to the way that I think and to a lot of my success, in all honesty. But I was thinking to myself at the point, okay, cool. I'm doing business. There's a global financial crisis. Now I could finish the next 3 years or whatever it might be, and then come out and be in a position where maybe there isn't jobs. Maybe people are not looking to hire me, or maybe people are going to be looking to hire people who've already got experience, and I'm coming out fresh. So instead of trying to learn business, why don't I go and practice business? So this was, my mindset at the time. And also you can imagine my mom at this stage, she's now, super excited. Oh, my son's finally getting his act together. He's at uni, and the next thing, like, I'm dropping out. Yes. So that didn't go down too well, but it is just what it is. So, at this stage, I've been living by myself for, 5, 6 years. I'm independent. Like, no one's going to tell me, how to live my life at this stage, right? So I dropped out. But there's just one thing on my mind. I've always been connected to property, whether that was in Nigeria when, as a kid, Nigeria has a way of just really rubbing wealth in your face. So you could be poor and round the corner, you got a man with a mansion, right? Like that's just the way Nigeria is. So I remember I've told this story a couple of times, as a kid in Nigeria, just walking to the shop. And there was this guy who pulled up to his house and he pressed a button in his car and the gate opened. And I said, do you know how rich you have to be to not even get out of your car and open your gate? This just blew my mind. And I see the gate open, I see the house is massive. I said, wow, I want to have a house like that on someday, right? Like this has just been in my mind. So I've always connected property to wealth. But then also when you're homeless, that's the one thing that you treasure. You understand the power of having a roof over your head. I know what it meant to me. Something that kind of drives me, just making sure, that people also have a roof over their head and all this sort of thing. So I had this connection to property, but I also knew that I was going to be good at it. So I've been watching programs like Homes Under the Hammer, and look, trust me, it was actually funny because 360, I was on Homes Under the Hammer not too long ago, and it was a surreal experience, really, really surreal, because it just kind of takes you back to your journey. You're like, bro, I can't believe this. Look at where I started. Like, look at where I am. This is insane. But I knew I could do it. I knew I could excel within this property space. So, with no experience at all, dropped out of uni, printed my CVs and just went to every single estate agency on the high street of Southampton. And just, one after the other, they all said no, 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 until the very last one, which also happened to be the largest franchise in the UK at the time. And they said yes. But just to actually pull it back a little bit first, just before that, right? Because I want to give this guy his props. Before I walked into that last agency, there was the person just next door to them, the second to the last. I walked in there and it was a new franchise owner. It was like, I'm new, I can't afford, to bring anyone in right now. But he sat me down and told me everything that I was saying wrong. This is wrong here. You don't know what you're talking about here. You sound really arrogant here. I was really hubristic in my approach because I had the confidence. I felt like I could do the job. No, I knew that I could do the job. But the reality was I had no experience and I didn't really know what I was talking about. But the difference between the other agencies and him is he spotted that it wasn't arrogance, but it was misplaced confidence, right? So he polished that, told me exactly where I was going wrong, what I should do differently. And the very next door I went into, which was the last one, the last option, last choice, I got a job in there. So it's incredible. So I always talk about mentors along the way, the power of mentorship, right? I do a lot of coaching myself. I'm mentoring people to have success in property and business. And that's because I've just had this key pivotal moment in my life. The first one was my teacher. The next one was this guy who, without them there, who knows where my life would have shaped? Who knows where I would be right now? That's the power of mentorship, the power of the right guidance and having the right people around you to guide you in the right direction. I can't stress the importance of that enough.
Absolutely. So in terms of your mentors, your teacher and the estate agent guy, are you still in contact with those two people?
I'm not. But funnily, with the estate agent guy, this is a crazy experience. Just last year, I went to a property summit. It was one of these coaches within the estate agency field, and she had this summit, and I went there with my business partner. And as we were sat in the audience, and bear in mind, this situation happened, we're talking 12, 13 plus years ago now. We sat in the audience, and they start talking about this guy, and then his picture comes up as they're talking about to introduce him to the stage. I'm looking at this guy. This guy looks mad familiar. I start to shake, like I was literally shaking, right? So I'm thinking, is this the guy? And I'm saying to my business partner, because I've told this story a few times to a lot of people, right? I said, bro, this is the guy I'm talking about. This is him. Like, I'm almost tearing up even talking about it now, bro. Like, is that crazy? And he was like, well, what are you talking about? I said, bro, you know the guy I'm talking about in my story about their stage and something like this? I swear that's him. Because are you sure? Oh, I don't know. But it looks like, because I haven't seen this guy for over a decade. I said, if he mentions Southampton, it's him. I look at him, bro, and he says, Southampton. Like 2 minutes into him getting on stage, and I was just like, oh my God, that is the guy. It was an absolutely incredible experience, really, really emotional. You know, during the break, I saw him, pulled him up to the side, you know, we had a chat. I told him, and like, I could see his eyes, he was tearing up as well, because I just told him, bro, like, thank you so much. This is kind of where my life is at now. I just wanted to let you know, like, I really appreciate it. And for him, I was just someone who he just saw, he spent 20 minutes with, and that was it. Went about his life, obviously we started working next door to each other, right, over that period of time. But I just moved on. Do you know what I mean? I just moved on. But telling him, just seeing him back in that moment, to him, I could just tell he was a good guy, because it meant something to him. Do you know what I mean? It meant something. He was emotional. And when I kind of told him how grateful I was and all of that, it was an incredible experience, man. Incredible.
Okay. Wow, that's really amazing that you managed to reconnect after all that time. So after you got the job at the estate agent, what was the very first deal that you got when you got into property, like getting your own personal property, starting your property journey?
Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't. It was. I'm one of those people, and this is not a good trait, by the way. I think it's something that I'm learning in myself, where you've got to be able to enjoy that moment and really understand what's happening in this moment and be present. It's called gratitude. So I couldn't tell you my first deal, to be honest with you, because I was just so driven. Because I knew, I said to that manager in that interview, I said, listen, it was offering a terrible wage commission. I said, cool. I said, that's fine. I said, but set me a target, give me any target. If I smash that target, then I need to be on the same income as, you know what I'm saying, as the rest of the team. He said, okay, cool, 3 months. And by 3 months, if you hit this number, I smashed that number in the first month. I was the top performer in that branch in the first month. I knew I could do this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Yes, my confidence might have been misplaced. Yes, I didn't understand what I was talking about, but I knew that I had the ability to really excel in property. But I don't remember the first property I let or anything at all like that. I don't generally remember that. But in terms of my first deal, I mean, here's another thing, right? And this is why I'm so passionate about helping people, especially within my community as well, but also helping people who were in that position where they had no money, bad credit, no deposit, because a lot of things in property, people feel like they have to have all of these resources, but how do you help that person? The one thing that actually hindered me is understanding how the game now worked, having put myself in a position where I was now in a financially secure position. Here's the thing, my credit still came back to haunt me. Even though I wanted to get onto the ladder, now I've got cash. This was in Nigeria, right? So that's how that works. But in terms of the UK, so a lot of my skill sets actually working with investors. So that's what I do. I help investors build their portfolio. Well, that's what I was doing before coming onto the coaching thing, which is a different story in itself. But working with investors and helping them to build their portfolios. And then that's how I generate my income. But what happened recently is I felt like I wanted to go back and start helping people from the background where I was from, which is no money, no credit, no one trusts you enough to want to be your guarantor. So how does that person actually start and make money through property? And that was the issue that I was having. Like, how can I help these people? Because from the experience I had, estate agency, I went on to start working for the largest property investment firm in the city of London. I started working with the second largest property coaching company here in the UK. And it was in me spending tens of thousands of pounds, getting no results. And I was like, how can I help these people actually win? How can I help these people actually get results? But I understood that the skill set that I had, working with high net worth individuals, helping them build portfolios, wasn't something that maybe anyone could walk into. It definitely could, but maybe it wasn't something that, people might have the confidence that, I can actually go and speak to, someone who's worth a few million and help them do this. So I said, like, but how can I do that? And that's when I looked at the service accommodation model. I looked at the way the industry was doing it, and I was like, this just doesn't make sense. A lot of my investors wouldn't accept this offer because it doesn't really make sense, and especially under the current economic climate. But what offer would they accept? I'm saying, what would they look at? What is the pain points that they're having right now in this current economic climate, and how can we solve that? And when I found that answer, I actually found that it was an answer that could help everyone as well. Anyone who was willing to work and willing to put in the time and the effort and the energy into actually creating a business, then I could help them get there without needing any money, without needing to put on deposit. It doesn't matter if they got bad credit, but as long as they were willing to learn and implement the strategies, then they could actually generate thousands of pounds every single month through a property business. So that's when I came into this business. So, okay, you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to park my stuff for a little bit. I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to build a business doing exactly what I'm talking about, because I don't want to be one of these coaches who are just coaching and not doing. So I went out and actually built an Airbnb portfolio. And then now it's like, okay, cool. Now let's focus on actually showing these people through my experience exactly how they can do the same for themselves as well.
Okay. And what year was that when you first started the Airbnb business?
This is last year.
Last year, okay. So prior to last year, you're doing your research and working at the estate agents, is that correct?
No, the estate agents was years ago now. This is years ago. This is years and years. So from the estate agency, there's a whole. I've probably gone a little bit far ahead, but from the estate agency, I started my first business, which was a brokerage, an insurance brokerage, because again, I felt like I saw what these people were doing. I thought, I can do better than this. What are these guys doing? Right? So I decided to go out there, start my own insurance brokerage, but that didn't actually work out. That was a failure. And I don't mean failure in the way that people look at failure, because people perceive failure as saying like it's finite, like you failed, like this is the end, you failed, which is not the way I see failure at all. Failure just you've learned something, you've learned a way not to do something. It's actually what you need to do to progress. The wealthiest people, the most successful people on this planet are the ones who have failed the most, because they've understood that that is what it takes to progress. If you're not failing, that means you're not trying, you're not taking any risk, because no one has 100% success rate. So if we know that no one has 100% success rate, what then does it take to actually succeed? It means you have to fail consecutively until you crack the code, and then you get to the next level. It doesn't mean you're not going to fail again. It means, okay, cool, now I go take more risk, I go fail a few more times, and then I get to the next level again. So failure is just it's a natural part of success anyway. But I didn't feel like that this time. At this time, I felt like I had failed. I was in a depressive state. I felt like I'd let my family down. I got my partner at this stage. She's going to drama school. I said, listen, I've got you. Just go drama school, do your thing, focus on your studies. I've got you. Again, my family is like, oh my God, look at him. He's got his own business. This is great. So there's all of this, not even expectations from them, but this is the way that I was doing it. This is the way that I was perceiving it. And I felt like I'd failed. I felt like I was letting everyone down. And I remember there was this night where I was at my mother-in-law's house. This is in the morning. I'm talking like 1, 2 a.m., dark outside, very, very silent. And I'm outside her door, her bedroom door, and I'm just sat on the ledge. And it's cold, but my palms are sweating. All right? The only noise I could hear is just my heart beating. The reason I was sat there in the first place is because I thought I was going to die. And I thought to myself, when that moment comes, I want to be able to lean into her door, get her attention so she could, do the necessary things, make the necessary calls. And that was the day that I got a phone call from my business partner to say we'd lost the business. And that was the first time I really, had this panic attacks, this anxiety attacks, because I was feeling like I couldn't really understand, what had happened. But yeah, so that was my first, big failure in business. But then, you know, what happens after that? You know, after a couple of weeks of this, I'm like, listen, you got to get yourself back together. Like, you can't just sit here for all day doing nothing, because that's essentially what's happening. I was just in the room doing all sorts of nonsense. I mean, not doing nonsense, but just, you know, watching TV, not being able to like get out and, you know, move and do something. But then slowly, you know, I put on my Tony Robbins tapes, started getting myself back out, going for walks and then jogs and then runs. And then, you know, you start creating again. Okay, let's set a plan. What's the next step's going to be? You know, and then that's how I ended up in London, because I said, okay, you know what? Let's go mix it with the big boys. It's time to go back to London and go see what this is all about.
Okay, fantastic. So what year did you move to London in order to do that?
So this would have been, what, 2016, 2017?
Okay. So once you moved to London, what was the first thing you did in terms of business-wise?
Went to work with my friend. So this was security job. So he was where he owned his own security company. So he was actually going to the security firm and working there on the doors. It's like, okay, cool. When you make a decision, you know, Tony Robbins says, when you make a decision, you can't live the moment of that decision without taking a step towards the attainment of that goal. You got to take the first steps. You know, perfection is the killer of dreams. So if you're waiting to make things perfect, then ultimately you never take that first step. If you never take that first step, then the goal's never going to get achieved in the first place. And nothing is ever perfect. So if that's what you're chasing, then you're never going to get off the ground. So the first thing was to get to London. Let's be in the city. I spoke to him. Yes, you can have a job. Okay, perfect. So let's go then. Then when we get there, we can start looking around for opportunities and seeing exactly, you know, where the opportunity is going to come from. So that was the first thing. So I was on the doors with him, and then I ended up going into the office, doing the operation side of things. And then it was time to fly. I said, okay, you know what? I'm done. Let's go out into the world now, and let's just go make a lot of money. Because I was not going to let my family down again. I was never going to be in that situation again where I didn't have enough income to make sure whatever happened to me, whatever happened to a job or the business, that we were cool. You know, so that's when I applied, you know, for the investment firm in the city, got that role, and never really looked back. Like, that was learned a lot. You know, that's where I first started working with, you know, some of the wealthiest people on this planet. I'm talking Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Australia, South Africa, like all these really wealthy people. When these people want you, they want you, right? At the same time, obviously, they got a lot of money. You're trying to make money. You're thinking, okay, cool. And you're working like a slave every single hour under the sun, just to ensure that you're working to your best ability and that you're a top performer in this environment. Like, this is just literally what it took. You know, but ultimately, you've got to make a decision sometimes, like, what sort of life do you want to live? And listen, I was making a lot of money. I remember one time, you know, my partner would be arguing with me because now we're thinking about having a child. We're talking about, you know, 2019, yeah. We're thinking about having a child. And she'll be saying, oh, what sort of life is this? You're barely ever home. Is this the sort of life that you want for your child? And because she always knew that I didn't grow up with a dad. You know, so it was always very, very important for me to make sure that I was going to be there for my children. So she understood this, and she would say, like, you know, what happens when, you know, our son arrives? Because I was fully convinced that I was going to have a son, but now I've got a daughter. But I was so convinced that I'd brainwash her to think it was going to be a boy as well. Do you know what I mean? But this is it. But I would always say to her, what are you talking about? Look at the amount of money that we're making. Like, this is what it takes to earn what we earn. And the truth is, that is what I believed. This is what the system wants you to believe. They want to give you enough just to hang you on that edge for you to not want to pull away and go and create for yourself and always feel that this attachment to them. And I truly believed that at the time. But everything came to a head 2020. Just like any other day, I get a phone call with my mom. She's been rushed into hospital and like she's got COVID. But it's like this, and she's in intensive care.
Wow.
And the only thing keeping her alive is a ventilator. Now, being the I'm from a Nigerian background, and being the first child, it's like my responsibility, to look after my siblings, make sure everyone's fine. You got all of these phone calls coming in from Nigeria. Everyone's trying to find out what's happening. And at the same time, I'm trying to process how I'm feeling emotionally about all of this. So I called my boss, like, I've got to take time off. And I'll never forget the way it made me feel. It was like, your clients need you. Because did you hear what I just told you? And it was in that moment that I understood. Like, people always talk about the system is broken. The system isn't broken. The system is working perfectly fine. For the system is designed to be like this. Because I understood in that moment is I was just a spoke in the wheel. And if I was to just drop down dead, they would have just taken out that spoke, put everyone in, and the wheel continues to turn. And the reality is, if I wanted to make any changes in my life, it was going to have to be me who made the decision to make those changes in my life. And it was never, ever, ever just going to be handed over to me. And that was it. I made that decision that I am never going to work for anyone ever again in my life.
Wow, okay. So once your mom got rushed to hospital with COVID, what happened to your mom? Is she okay now? What's happened?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. No one ever asked that, actually. No one ever asked that. But yes, my mom is fine. She's alive and well, kicking. She was in there for a couple of weeks. She come out, and yeah, she's good. She's good, thankfully.
Yeah,
Thankfully.
that's good to hear. That is good to hear.
Yeah.
So, okay. So once you left, I'm presuming you left that job once they told you can't have time off to go and
That
meet.
was it. That was it. I was done. It was yeah. It was time to go. And I because of I believe so strongly in the power of mentorship. It wasn't a case of, okay, cool, let me just go and just try and figure something out. I wanted to go and get mentored. I wanted to understand this. I come from this corporate background. This is what we do. Here's how we do it. We're working with these people. We've got these opportunities. We're going to create a pitch deck, show them what the opportunity is, how much investments they need to make to get this sort of returns. It's all kind of black and white, but it also has to be very safe in a way as well. You can't really push the boat out in those environments, right? But now I wanted to learn all these different, I've been hearing about all these different alternative strategies, you get on YouTube, and, you get these ads coming and people talking about make money through property and no money down. And all I thought, let me go and see what this, different strategies people are talking about, So I went there to get mentored by this organization that I was talking about, the second largest one in the UK. And obviously in my capacity there, obviously they spotted my talents, understood the experience that I've got in property, and they wanted me to become a mentor within their academy. So I started mentoring people within the academy, and then I started speaking on webinars for them, and I started speaking on stages for them. But after a while, I just realized that this doesn't feel good. And the reason why it doesn't feel good is because I was seeing the success rate of people who were coming in and who actually get results. And people spending tens of thousands of pounds, and after a year of mentorship, 0 deals. And this was just insane to me. But worse than that, and look, I bought into it. I was a part of the problem because I was selling this stuff. This is just the reality. But when people started coming to me and telling me, oh yeah, bro, do you know what? When I saw you up there, I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. And although it was coming from a good place, for me, that was killing me because I was like, no, like, you can't be doing this because of me, because I already know, like, it's not going to be looking good for you on the back end, right? So for me, that actually, I couldn't say anything, but for me, it was like, it wasn't a good feeling. So I said to myself, like, you've got to do something about this. Like, what can you actually do? Because these strategies that they're teaching these people, and the main strategy was this service accommodation stuff, this rent to rent. I don't know if you guys know what rent to rent is, but it's where you go to a landlord, you tell them you're going to guarantee their rent, and you're going to, pay them the rent, take the property from them, but they're going to allow you to sublet the property. And then typically people will put them on, platforms like Airbnb and Booking.com, and then they would rent them on these platforms on a short-term basis and make more money. These were the strategies that they were teaching. majority of them, right? And I could see the flaws in this strategy. First of all, a huge amount of outlay on the front end. You know, you got to put rent down, you got to put deposit, and then you go buy furniture. You're talking 6 to 8 grand before you see a penny of profit. And then it's going to take you about 10 to 12 months to even get that money back before you start seeing profits. And that's if the landlords want to work with you in the first place, because what's in it for them? So I'm seeing all these people coming in and they're being told you're going to make $1,000 a month, you know, in the first few weeks, and then you're going to do 10 grand a month after 3 months. And but hold on, people aren't even getting one deal. You're talking about 10 grand a month, you're not getting one deal. After a year, you spent £30,000. So for me, I thought there's got to be a better way. And that's when I started looking into, okay, cool, how can I help these people? Like, how can I help that person who's like me, who no money, no credit, you know what I'm saying? Like, no one believes in them. When I was coming up, how can I help that person make money for property? And that's when I started looking at the different ways. I started doing some research in the market, and then I understood, well, actually, well, what do estate agents do for landlords? Okay, they manage, but they can't even get the landlords more money. In fact, they're costing the landlords money because they're getting this rent, and then the landlord's paying them management from that rent. So now the landlord's actually getting below the rent because they've got this management company managing for them. What if I could actually manage it for these people as an Airbnb, make them more money than they're going to make from a traditional rent? Yes, they're going to pay me, but even after they pay me, they're still making double the amount of profits from what they would from traditional rental. And guess what? I ain't going to pay rent. I don't have to put down deposit. I don't have to buy any furniture. Bang. Okay, cool. You know what? This is going to work for my investors. This is going to work for the caliber of people who I've dealt with. Let me actually go into the marketplace and put this thing to test. And then one deal, second deal, third deal, fourth deal, fifth deal. And you're thinking, hang on, this is pretty easy, right? I mean, I thought it would be because of the value proposition. Anything you do in business, it's got to be, what's the value? What value you bring into the marketplace? What pain, what problems are you solving for the other person? The bigger the problem you can solve, the easier it is for you to make money. And that's what people don't realize. There's a direct correlation between how much money you make and how many people you help. The more people you help, the more money that you are going to make. And once I understood the problem landlords were having in the marketplace, it wasn't about guaranteeing their rent. It was about being able to generate more of an income because their mortgage rates has just doubled and tripled. So they needed to match that, right? And the traditional rental wasn't going to do that. So now there's this alternative option. And even though it's great for the landlord, it's also great for us. And that's why the business was able to take off. And that's why now I've decided to start coaching and mentoring people in doing this. That's why my students are getting unprecedented results in the industry, because I've shown them how to position it, how to pitch it to the landlord, how to make it make sense, and all of the strategies to use to get the similar results as well.
Okay, fantastic. So in terms of the process that you follow currently, does that include all the bills? Is that the responsibility of the person who's, let's say, for example,
if you're a tenant, you pay the rent, you pay the bills, and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happens with the landlord. But with what we're doing, I mean, the estate agent doesn't pay any of that, but they're managing that property for the landlord. So when we're also managing it for our landlords, we're not paying the rent, we're not paying the bills, we're not paying the expenses, we're just managing it for you. Which means when, you know, we list that property, you know, we write the listing, we get the professional photographer in, you know, we speak to the guest, you know, we make sure we're getting good reviews, you know, we get the cleaners in there, we handle the changeovers. That's our job. That's what we're getting paid for.
Okay.
Right? And that's it. There is no financial liability upon us.
Okay, fantastic. So moving on, earlier, you said you appeared on Homes Under the Hammer. So do you just want to go into a bit more detail as to what year that was, where the property was, and how that ended up?
Yeah, this was literally just, I mean, the episode aired about 3 weeks ago. Yeah, okay. It was literally, very, very recent. So it was just interesting. It's, you know, obviously from being in this world now and you start to build relationships. So I've got, some good friends within the industry. And it was actually one of my friends who was investing up there. It's something that I want to start doing myself as well. So I said, okay, cool. You know, let's have a look at some opportunities up there. And he said, actually, do you know what? I've just applied for Homes Under the Hammer. He's been on there a couple of times. Do you want to come? I said, yeah, of course I want to come. Let's do this, right? So I went up there, we appeared on the show, and it was just really, really surreal. Just thinking about, where you were, where you started. When you're in this dark place and you're watching this program, you're thinking, I can do what these people are doing, all of that. And now to be in a position where you can actually do that, and you're actually on this program, hoping to inspire other people who are just like me, who are watching this and thinking, okay, cool, you know what? Yeah, he looks like a mug as well. I can do what he's doing. So but that's cool. As long as it gives them the belief, then that's perfectly fine.
Okay, fantastic. And that is it for the podcast. So thank you very much, Ibrahim, for your time. Take the time out to speak to me today. I will put your social media links in the description box below. So thank you again for your time, and thank you, the viewers, for watching. So I've been your host, Mr. EPC. So if you did like this podcast, please do hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and do look out for the next podcast. And thank you again for watching.